Hey everybody, welcome back to Connerty Meadows Farm. My name is Ricky, and today in the kitchen, we are going to be making some cheese. We are going to be making Edam today, and it is very similar technique in the beginning part as Gouda, but it actually is a 2-day process. Let's get started. As with many of our other cheeses, this is the book we are using today, and Edam is right in there. Now we are going to be using our raw milk from our cow. So there's a lot of cream on that. So we'll be shaking our jars as we put them into the bucket. We're using 12 liters of milk, so about 3 gallons or so. And we will also be using calcium chloride. Now, normally when you're using raw milk, you don't need calcium chloride, but in our case, our cow is later in lactation. And the calcium chloride also helps make sure that you get a good strong curd. Another thing that calcium chloride does is it makes sure that our cheese is going to be consistent throughout the whole year. So whether she's eating grass or hay or somewhere in between, it just means that the taste and the consistency of the cheese is going to be maintained the same.
The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to put water in our double boiler. Then we are going to shake all of our jars and put them into our pot, and our pot goes in the double boiler.
We have our milk now put in our double boiler, and we have our little mixing thing here and our thermometer. And we are going to heat this milk low and slow to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have a propane stove. This has a double burner on it. It's got a large burner and a small burner. So we actually put it on the smaller burner on the low setting. We don't want to heat this up too quickly. And it is very important to also have a double boiler. It distributes the heat more evenly and doesn't concentrate it on the bottom of the pot of milk. And it just helps keep it from scorching. So for now, we're just gonna wait. We're gonna stir this periodically while we wait for this to come to temperature. Now we are sitting right now at 49.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have quite a ways to go before we get to that 84. We're only at 70, and again, we are going to 84 degrees Fahrenheit, so a little bit left to go. For Edam, we need Meso 3 as the powder, but the Meso 3 from the company that we normally get it from, they can't get Meso 3 anymore, so it has been replaced with another one. Anyway, this is what we are now using instead of the Meso 3, and we've had no problems. We don't actually notice a difference between the Edam that we made with the Meso 3 and this one, so chances are it's probably more just like a name change. We are at 83.8. We are almost at our 84. I'm just gonna stir it here a little bit. Almost. All right, so now that we are at our 84, we are turning our heat off. We're gonna take our mixer out. We're gonna take our thermometer out. We do not need it. So one of the other reasons why having a double boiler is far superior than just putting your pot directly onto the heat is for the next little while, this has to maintain its own heat, which means it will hold its heat longer at with the double boiler than just a pot on the stove. So for the Meso 3 or this replacement powder, we are going to use half a teaspoon. So I have my teaspoon here, measure it out. Now this is a very fine powder, and we're just gonna sprinkle this on the top like that. And then I'm gonna set the timer for 4 minutes. And at the end of that 4 minutes, we're gonna mix this in. Timer went off, our 4 minutes are up. We're gonna use this guy, and then we're going to just go up and down gently 20 times.
I know it looks like I'm going really fast, but this is just on fast forward for you guys.
We're not making a whirlwind in here. We're not like stirring it like crazy. It's just enough to mix the culture all the way through. And now that our 20 times is done, this is going to continue to rest. We're gonna put our lid on, and this is going to rest for 30 minutes. Now in this 30 minutes, it's called ripening. The culture is gonna ripen in here. So we're gonna set the timer for 30 minutes. And again, this is why it is so important to have a double boiler. If you just left this on your stove for 30 minutes, the temperature is going to drop well below what we want it to be. This may drop a degree, maybe 2 with the double boiler, but it won't go more than that. If you just had this without the water surrounding it, the temperature would drop a lot more, and that meant the culture wouldn't work properly. All right, so I will see you back here in 30 minutes. 30 minutes has passed. So the next step is we are going to be adding our calcium chloride. And in order to do that, we need a cool 1/4 cup of water. And it has to be non-chlorinated. We're on a well, so our well water is non-chlorinated. So 1/4 cup, and then 3/4 of a teaspoon of the calcium chloride. You don't need to use calcium chloride. We just do, we're later in lactation and we've already kind of gone over the reasons for it, but so we're gonna go ahead and add this. And here we are. And we're gonna take this over and put it in the milk. So much like when we stirred the culture in, we're going to do 20 up and down strokes as we pour the calcium chloride in.
Again, this isn't that fast. I'm just putting it on fast forward so you don't have to watch me.
We're gonna go ahead and we are gonna set the timer for 5 minutes. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get our rennet ready. Just like the calcium chloride, we're going to add 1/4 of a cup of cool non-chlorinated water and 3/4 of a teaspoon of the rennet. Five minutes is up. We're gonna go ahead and add our rennet now, and same thing. 20 up and down strokes.
And again, I'm just throwing this on fast forward so you guys don't have to painfully watch it as I do it slowly.
All right, so now we're gonna put the lid on and we're gonna put the timer on for 45 minutes. You're not adding any heat or anything like that. Again, that's why this double boiler is very important. So this is going to sit for 45 minutes while the curd is forming. And then when we come back, we're gonna cut the curd. All right, guys, time to cut the curd. So I'm gonna bring you in close and you can see what that looks like. All right, so to cut the curd, we're gonna go in and we're gonna move it to the side. And we have a nice thick layer there that is nice and firm. So we can go ahead and we can cut this all the way through. Now we used to have a special tool, but before we had that special tool, we used a whisk. That lovely special tool was plastic and it broke, so we're back to using a whisk. Personally, I just prefer to use the whisk because it means I'm only dirtying one item, and I'm gonna be using this to continue to stir afterwards, so I might as well use it to cut as well. So what we do is we put it down and in and turn as we come up. And we're just gonna go around the whole outside of the pot doing this. And then we're gonna move into the middle. And then we're gonna scoop up from underneath. And you're not like doing this fast. This is gonna be nice and gentle. All right. So now we're gonna set the timer and we're gonna stir this for 5 minutes.
And I'm not trying to torture you guys, so I'm just doing this quick for you again.
Our 5 minutes of stirring is up. I'm gonna show you what the curds look like. So they're pretty tiny at this point. Our next stage is to now turn the heat on to medium-low. And we are going to keep stirring for another 20 minutes. And our goal is to reach a temperature of 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Stirring again the whole time.
No one on the planet needs to watch someone stir for that length of time.
And yes, you have to stand here and stir. It's a good time to get a book out or listen to a podcast if that's what you like to do, or something like that, because you're going to be here for 20 minutes for this stirring. All right, guys, our 20 minutes are up and we are at 91 degrees Fahrenheit. If by some chance you weren't able to play with the temperature and you're not quite at 91 and your 20 minutes is up, just keep going until you get to your 91. If you notice that your temperature is going a little bit faster, then you can turn it off and keep going to make your 20 minutes. After this point, we are going to take this guy out and we're going to let the curds settle to the bottom of the pot for 10 minutes. And the reason why we are doing this is because we are going to wash the curd much like we do with Gouda, where we remove a portion of the whey and then we are going to put fresh water in. So we need to let the curds settle so that we'll be able to scoop the whey off. 10 minutes and the curd have settled. Let me show you what that looks like. So you can see the whey is all here at the top. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this strainer and this cup here. And we're going to scoop the whey and put it in this pot. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that.
And let's speed through the watching of this as well.
The reason why we use the strainer here is so that when we're scooping, we don't get any liquids. Now you can see we're down to our curd now in the pot. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna remove this guy. I've got the whey out that we can. I'll take this guy out. You see? And now we're gonna add water to that. So we want the water to be 111 degrees Fahrenheit that we're adding back to the whey. So get your thermometer in there and get it to 111. We're gonna fill this with the same amount of whey we took out. So if you made a note of where your whey filled to, that's where you have to fill the water to.
Talk about watching a pot boil. Let's just speed this along for you.
You got to get in there and stir this right away. That way you don't get any clumps. So we're gonna stir this all up and distribute the heat. And we want this temperature to stabilize at 99 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're just gonna go ahead, stir for a few minutes here, see where our temperature ends up.
So you just want to stir this until your temperature stabilizes and doesn't change.
All right, so we are at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is okay, because now what we're going to be doing, oh, and we just dropped 99. So now what we're going to be doing is we are going to let this sit undisturbed for 25 minutes. Okay, so what you can do to help maintain that temperature, put your lid back on. And that'll help keep it around that 99. And just set your timer for 25 minutes. At the end of that 25 minutes, we're gonna be going ahead and we're gonna be pouring off. So you can get your colander lined with your cheesecloth and your mold ready to go in this 25 minutes that you're waiting.
All right, so to get my colander ready, I use stainless steel clothespins to hold up my cheesecloth, and this is like a plasticky version of cheesecloth. It's not cotton, and I use a second one in with it because I'm actually going to need 2 molds, and then I pour boiling hot water on them. I'm going to go ahead, take the second cheesecloth off, and we are going to pour off. And you can see I'm just going to pour the cheese in, and then we're going to let it drain on the counter for a little bit while I go ahead and I get both of the molds ready. Now I know with this recipe that I need these 2 molds, which one is a big and one is smaller, because if I try to fit it all in the big one, it won't work. That's why I needed the 2 cheesecloths. So you can see I squish it down and I'm able to put both of them in, and then I'm just going to go ahead and prop them up so they kind of kneel to the side a bit, and tighten them down to hand tight and till the whey is dripping, which you can see here. It's a nice steady drip, and that's where we want to tighten it to in this tightening.
So these 2 are in the molds. They're going to stay in the molds for an hour, and then we're going to redress them. That means that we're going to take them out, flip them upside down, put them back in, and then we're going to leave them 12 hours, or in our case, overnight. Now, that whey that we poured off in the pot, you need to hang on to that. Lucky for us, we live in Canada, and then right now it's pretty cold outside. So I'm actually going to take my whey, and I'm going to go and I'm going to put it in our unheated garage for the night, because we're going to need that whey tomorrow morning.
Our hour is past, so now I am going to do what's called redressing the cheese, which basically means I pull the cheese out of the cheesecloth, I put the downside up and the upside down, and then I put the cheesecloth back around it. So you can see I flip it, put the cheesecloth back around it, stuff it back in the mold, and tighten it down until I have a small drip. I don't need a steady drip like last time. And now off to bed.
Good morning, guys. Welcome back. So now we're going to go ahead, and this is the cheese that we put in the molds last night. We're going to pop out to the garage, and we're going to grab the whey that we had put in the garage overnight, and then we're going to bring it up and put it on the stove. Now, like I said last night, we live in Canada and it's cold right now, so I can actually use my unheated garage as a extended fridge. If you're having to make this and it's not cold out, then you are going to need to put this whey in a fridge overnight, because you don't want it getting funky. So just to give you an idea, let's see what our temperature is at here. It's registering at 55 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's pretty cool. So now we are going to turn this on, and we are going to heat this to 116.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Why are we reheating this way? So what we're actually going to be doing is once this comes to, oh, look at that, it even dropped further. 53.6 is what it dropped to. What we are going to do, once this reaches 116.6 degrees Fahrenheit, we are going to unmold the cheese, and we are going to put it in this pot, and we are going to set it in the pot for 5 minutes for the smaller one, 10 minutes for the bigger one, and we're just going to keep flipping it around in there, and we're going to warm it up. And then when our 5 or 10 minutes is done, we are going to get a fresh new cheesecloth, and we are going to repress the cheese again for about 2 to 3 hours. And then once we've pressed it for about 2 to 3 hours, then we're going to take it and we're going to put it in our heavy brine for 12 hours. So this cheese is a little more complicated in that it has a second day's work amount on it compared to any of the other cheeses that we make. But I promise you, the flavor's worth it. We are at 115. Again, we're going to 116.6. Oh, we're at 116. And there we are at 116.6. So I'm going to shut the heat off. And we are going to put our cheese in. All right. So I like to use the ladle to help me put it in. The ladle's not strong enough to hold it up entirely. And then we just put this in. Now this one we're going to put on the timer for 10 minutes. And I just like to once in a while keep it moving in there so that it doesn't like settle all the way down to the bottom and then like the hot metal from the bottom just melting the bottom of the cheese. So I actually keep my ladle underneath of it. And the other thing I want the ladle underneath it for is because at some point I have to come in here and pull this back out and our 10 minutes is up. And then we have to get ready to put the next one in. Now, while this is sitting in here, you need to get some fresh cheesecloths to, when you pull this out, you're going to putting it in fresh new cheesecloth and putting it back in the mold. So you don't need to, the press, sorry, you're putting it back in the press. You don't need to clean your press or the mold holding the cheese. You just need to have a clean cheesecloth to go into the press. You can see she's kind of there, and I just like to move it around a bit, spinning it around a little bit so that it can not be sitting on the same spot the whole time. All right, our 10 minutes are up. This is the tricky part. So I have my clean, fresh cheesecloth here, and we're going to put our cheese on it. Now I like to flip it like when I'm redressing it, so the top is the bottom and the bottom is the top. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this back into our mold. So back into the mold we go. Okay. And then we're just gonna attach everything. Now the only difference is we're not looking to try to squish way out of it this time. We're just looking to add the pressure. And then in 2 hours, we'll take this one out. Now I'm gonna go ahead as soon as I get this one in the mold. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put the small one into the pot. I'm gonna make sure that my temperature is still at the 116.6. If it's not, I'm gonna heat it up before I add the next cheese. And because this other cheese is much smaller, it's only gonna go in for 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes. And I'm just gonna squish that down. Just firm pressure. You're not looking to like crank this one a lot. We just wanna add the next round of firm pressure again. And a little bit of whey did come out, but nothing significant. And there we go. So we can get this one ready. You see how much smaller this little guy is? So he'll only be 5 minutes in there. And again, we're gonna get rid of this one. And we'll have a clean one for him. Let's check our temperature here. Okay, so our temperature has dropped just a smidge. We're down to 115. So before I put this guy in, now I gotta stand here with this thing in my hand. We're gonna heat this back up. So we're just gonna stir this and watch our temperature until we get to the 116. It won't take very long. Just get it right back up. And then we'll do the same thing where we put this guy in and we'll go from there. See, I knew it wouldn't take that long. So we've turned the heat back off. We're gonna do the same thing. Put this guy in. Like that. We'll set our timer for 5 minutes. Is this one smaller? It's 10 minutes if it's bigger, 5 minutes if it's smaller. This guy, I have to work really hard to keep it on the little thing because it's so small I could lose it in the pot here. So just keep moving it around. I'll take that out now. And then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna press this. This one will actually come out of the mold faster because this one's smaller. So this one only needs to be pressed for probably about an hour or so. And the other one will be 2 or 3 hours just because of the size difference. And then they're both going to go into the heavy brine for 12 hours. So probably tonight after they've been in the brine for a bit, I'll flip them. And then first thing tomorrow morning, I'll be able to take them out and put them on a rack to dry. All right, next, clean and fresh cheesecloth. And again, we're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. And we're gonna put it in the mold. All right, guys, I'm just gonna tighten this down and then that's it. I'll see you back here in a couple hours. In the meantime, I've got to get started on my next round of cheese today, which is going to be Gouda. Because both of my molds are very busy over here with these guys. All right, guys, let's get these out of these molds. And we are going to take these cheeses to the heavy brine. And we keep our heavy brine in the cellar just to keep it a little bit cooler. I've also got Gouda that I'm making in the background there. That's hot. That's tonight's cheese.
And yes, I did say that you need to take the small one out before the big one, but I just was busy and I didn't get to it, so I'm taking them both out at the same time. Let's get these guys out of the molds and unwrapped and ready to go in the brine. So we actually keep our brine in our cold cellar, and we find that it works really well because it keeps it cooler and it does help inhibit things growing. Not that anything should, because it is a heavy salt brine, but we just like to keep it in the cool cellar. And I have a Gouda here that I am just pulling out Now we are going to leave this sit, and then we will be flipping the cheese in a few hours. So we are back here. It's 12 hours later. We're just going to go ahead, grab them, flip them, and then we can shut it down. And then another 12 hours later, we can grab them out, and you can see I've actually even added another cheese because I am making cheese every single day. So there's a lot of cheeses that go in and out of this brine on a day-to-day basis. And then after I grab it out of the brine, we put it on a shelf in the kitchen, and it will dry here for usually anywhere from 3 days to a week. It just depends. Some days it needs more, some days it needs less. And we will turn the cheese at minimum twice a day. If I can turn it more throughout the day, I most definitely do. I have a lot of cheeses on here that I'm constantly turning. You can see I also label the cheeses, and then on the calendar we write down what the cheeses are. Now this is called a wax cheese mold inhibitor. They also call it a cream wax, and we just put it on the outside of the cheese. We do 2 layers of this, and then we let it sit and dry between layers. So we want 2 full layers on this cheese. And then after we have our 2 full layers and they have completely dried, then we go ahead and we get the vacuum sealer ready. We vacuum seal our cheeses, and then we will write what kind of cheese it is, the date that we made it, and which cultures we used, and any other information pertinent to the cheese itself. And then this cheese will go into our fridge to age. And no, we don't have any different temperatures set at it. It is a regular fridge with a regular temperature, and we let it age.
So as you can see, we have a lot of cheese in, and it's just a regular fridge. We keep our extra eggs and stuff in here and whatnot. So twice a week we come in here and we flip all of these cheeses. Basically, like, that's just taking them and like going like this. And we do that twice a week. And then when we come in here too, we look through if there's anything moldy or anything suspicious or whatnot, then we deal with it. This is not the only fridge that we have full of cheese. We actually have a second one. And again, these are just regular fridges. We don't do anything special. We don't change the temperature at all. We just monitor it. And all that means is it's going to take a little bit longer for your cheese to age when you're vacuum sealing it, putting it in a fridge like this. But you're still going to get like wonderful, beautiful cheese. We've been doing it this way a long time and we've had no issues.
Here's a couple pictures of some aged Edam, and we're going to go ahead now and we're going to eat this so that you can see.
Okay, so we've got a wheel of Edam that we made on the 23rd of February 2023, and we're just about Remembrance Day, so we're roughly 8 to 9 months since we've made this cheese, and we are going to see what it's like. Smells pretty good. Big wheel of cheese, 12 liters of milk.
Good catch.
We'll pull off our cream wax. Just give me a sec. So this is right away, it's got a very nice aroma to it. Pull off the cream wax. So one thing that we found out with making Edam is generally calls for a Meso 3, which we can't actually get anymore. But I think we used a Seiko product that's equivalent. So if you're looking for Meso 3, you might have to look for an equivalent in Canada, Ontario.
Is it as good as the last one we made?
Similar. Very mild. Very tasty. Similar to Gouda. Very nice, very mild. Good cheese.
Just another quick picture for you to see.
That is start to finish for Edam. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Are we prepared?
You gotta get the full mouth body experience. Is that it?
I'm experiencing every inch, centimeter, fraction of an inch of this cheese.
Oh, goodness.
And it is quite lovely. It's a very good cheese. I think I'll make it again. Lucky for us, we live in Canada.
We live in